Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be looking at a topic that no one asked for, and I know that you guys are waiting for me to finish the Ascendant series, and you're probably waiting for your Ascendant. But if I don't go where my inspiration takes me, I wouldn't get anywhere in life. So we're going to be looking at the houses that I'm currently obsessed with, which are the 12th, the 4th, and the 8th. And today we're going to start with the 12th house. So let's get into it, guys. I'm going to give you some background information, some just background on the 12th house and what it means, what it represents, kind of what it's like also being a 12th houser from a fellow 12th houser myself. I know what it's like to be a 12th houser, and I'll give you some personal insight. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to give you 5 ways that you can better connect with your 12th house energies. And this becomes important if you have a lot of planets in the 12th house, or if there's something in the 12th house that you would like to access, that you would like to be able to use and have at your disposal, then these tips would really help you be better able to do that. So let's get into it, guys. So the 12th house is really a place of isolation. And in traditional astrology, they really don't associate it with spirituality at all. But because I like to combine traditional and modern astrology, I'll allow certain spiritual elements into the 12th house, but not everything. I don't just take an entirely modern view of it. So according to both traditional and modern astrology, the 12th house really rules isolation, hospitals, prisons, monasteries, and let's just think about what all of those things have in common. And if you think about what they all have in common, one common thread is that in all of those places, you go to kind of be alone. When you go stay at a hospital, you're really going to be surrounded by people you don't know. And you're away from your family. You, on a certain sense, you are away from yourself when you are in the 12th house, and also when you're in a hospital. So really the 12th house is a place that you go to patch yourself back up. Think about when people decide to go to monasteries, whenever they decide to go back to India or go to India and discover themselves, or find spirituality, they really are leaving all of the trappings of their normal everyday life. So your normal everyday life, your normal person is the first house. So if you get as far away from that as possible, that ends up being the 12th house. But they are kind of melted towards each other. So the 12th house really is your psychological underpinnings that really make you who you are in your first house. So that 12th house is very important to you, and especially if you have planets there. So in this series, I'm going to be talking about the houses as if they were actual places that you could physically go and visit. And I'm going to be popping up pictures as to what I think the 12th house would look like. And not only that, if this was a real place you could visit, I'm also going to give the houses landlords. So who would greet you if you went and knocked on the door? If the 12th house had a door, who would open the door when you knocked on it? So I think that if the 12th house had a door, if you went to a monastery, who would open that door but either an ascetic or a monk or a nun, somebody who is a spiritual renunciate, who has really given away their physical life and really dedicated themselves to just spiritual growth through seclusion. That is really important. So you know how there's different kinds of spirituality. The 9th house is traditionally associated more with spirituality and not the 12th. So the only spirituality that I will tie to the 12th house is that renunciate spirituality that has more to do with letting go of everyday life and just the comforts of everyday life and really going away somewhere to practice spirituality. That's the kind of spirituality that I think really deserves to be with the 12th house, because the 12th house has a really strong isolation element, has a really strong hermit element. People who have a lot of 12th house planets tend to be hermits. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I used to be made fun of a lot by my friends for being so solitary and being at home a lot, but I was really very happy. So a huge part of being a 12th houser, a lot of it is being a loner. And the reason for that is because that is the place that you go to renew yourself and refresh yourself. And really, if you're a 12th house person, you really need a lot of time to just recharge again, because your planets being there, they are in a place where people tend to go to fall apart, really. the 12th house is a place where people go to fall apart. Think about when you go to the hospital, a hospital. Like if you're actually interned in a hospital, that means that you're very sick. And it's not like the doctor's office, it is the hospital. So when you go there, you're either dying or you're very, very ill or you're close to death. So think of the houses as carrying energy. And I don't like to associate houses with signs because I really want to get people, myself included, away from the 12th letter alphabet. So the 12th letter alphabet is the one that just associates the 12 signs with the 12 houses and then assigns the planets to all of the houses. And that is not very accurate and not very useful. And the reason for that is because then you end up having like the moon and Cancer and the IC, they all mean the same thing. So that just like simplifies and waters down astrology. It's not as watered down as like a sun sign horoscope that you would find in a magazine, but it is just not the best work that you could do. And I really like to, push people to just do a little bit better, and I say that to myself as well. So I want to challenge myself to step away from that 12 letter alphabet and really start to separate Pisces from the 12th house, separate Neptune from the 12th house, because they are different. So the 12th house isn't Pisces. The 12th house isn't just like Pisces. It has some similarities in the sense that since we're talking about houses as if they were physical places, think about how places have certain vibes. And I don't mean that in a spiritual sense, in the sense that, how some people could sense like, oh no, like people have died here and they could feel it. But places do have vibes in the sense that they carry energy with them. Whenever there's a house where, let's just say when you were a little kid and you had a friend whose parents were always fighting, or there was just a lot of just abuse, or there was a lot of suffering in that house, you could kind of feel it. But just the vibe is tense. The vibe is just heavy. And that is just an example of how houses can have vibes. They have energy to them. So all of the houses have an energy to them. And because the 12th house is the place where people go to fall apart, think about what that vibe would be. What is the vibe in a hospital? When you go to a hospital and you walk in, do you feel happy? No, if you're an empathetic person, or if you're attuned to other people's energies, if you go to a hospital, the vibe is heavy. It is sad. The people who are there are weakened. They're not in their strength. They're not in the strength of the first house. They're in the 12th house. So that is the vibe of the 12th house. And if you have your planets there, your planets are kind of your people that are out there working for you, and they're supposed to get things done for you. All of the planets have a certain job that they're supposed to do for you. And if you have a lot of your guys, think of the planets as being your team. I call them the planetary family, right? So if you have your moon there, that's your mom, the part of you that nurtures you and takes care of you and keeps you comfortable. And imagine if she's in the hospital, you're gonna have an underlying layer of just heaviness to you. So that's what happens when you have planets in the 12th house. They are living in a house that carries with it heavy energy. So that could be a little bit painful and exhausting. Imagine if you lived in a hospital. Imagine if you lived in a place that was surrounded with such heavy, sad energy. You would just be imbued by it at a certain point. It's like you're simmering in that like sadness soup. And it depends what planets you have there, how much you'll be affected and how you'll be affected. But pretend that your chart ruler is in there. Then your whole life is going to be permeated a little bit and tinged a little bit with that 12th house heaviness to it. Or if you have your sun there, your sun, that's your vitality, where you're supposed to shine and be bright. That is your life. That's the sun. And if you have it in the 12th house, it's a very isolated place. And as I've already said, like it has that heavy energy to it. So your sun and your person and all of that is going to have a layer of just heaviness. And that is what happens in the 12th house. If you have the sun there specifically, or if you have planets there that you want to work on and you want to bring out to the light, you want to be more conscious of them because you have them. Everybody has all of the energies. We have all the energies. It's just a matter of how can we access those energies in the best, most easiest and efficient way. So that is the reason why I think that we should take the time to really understand the houses and how we can get in touch with the energies of those houses. So that's why I'm going to be giving you these tips. Keep in mind that all of these tips are just coming from me, just a humble little astrologer, 12th house lady. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. Nothing of the sort. I'm just an astrologer who is sharing her experiences with you. So let's get into the tips. So the first tip that I have for you is fasting. Fasting is a really easy way of just letting go of your body, which is your first house, and just really getting into your spirit. And I have experience with fasting. I actually love eating, so I have not ever been able to just completely fast on purpose. But one time I've only had spiritual experiences twice, like a truly profound spiritual experience. I've only had 2 of them. And the first time that I ever had one was one time that I was severely depressed. It was the first time that I ever got depressed. I was like 19 or 20 years old. And I was extremely depressed to the point that I was almost catatonic. I wouldn't say that I was catatonic, but if you compared me to a regular like lively person and a catatonic person, I was closer to the catatonic side. So I had been on my mom's couch for many days, if not weeks, and I hadn't eaten or drank anything for a really long time. Even though people brought me food and everyone was watching me, I just wouldn't move. I just wouldn't drink and wouldn't eat. And I remember that people would come over and pray for me. And because my mom and her friends, like, people are religious and they're Catholic, and it's like a cultural thing. And they would come and pray for me. I have an aunt who is very religious, and she would come and pray for me. And she looked at me, she looked at my face of just doom and despair, and she tells me, she goes, "Denise, I know that you don't have a lot of faith, but ask God for faith." And I heard her and I was like, well, she's right. At that point, I was extremely, I was an atheist and I didn't believe in anything. So I remember that I was like, okay, I could do that. I could pray for faith. To whoever's listening, I'll pray for faith. So the days continued on, but I did say a little prayer like, hey, hey man upstairs, if you're there, just give me a little bit of faith. Just give me a little bit of faith. That's what I said. I said it for a few days. And mind you that I was not eating. Just suddenly I don't know what day it was of my fast, of my unintended fast, but suddenly I got this overwhelming sensation of just calmness and of being okay. And if you've ever been depressed, you know how you feel just completely bogged down and like you're never going to be okay again because you've been so shitty for so long. And in that moment, I felt, this is how I describe the feeling to other people, but I felt like my brain was a receptacle, and as if somebody was pouring warm liquid into it. And as the liquid was being poured, I was being renewed and I was being like held together. And like if somebody told me everything's gonna be okay. And in that moment, I believed in God. And that was my first spiritual experience, and it came about through fasting. So I know that's kind of dramatic, and if you don't want to go a few days without eating, I didn't research this, so you're welcome to look into spiritual fasting, but I have an easier version of it. If you're not into fasting, I totally understand you. I myself love food, and not eating makes me extremely cranky. So I will say that there's an option for you. You can also try eating a plant-based diet, so not eating any meat. And this is not technically fasting, but it does put you in a lighter state. And this is not where I tell you that I'm a vegan and that you're a bad person because you eat meat. That is not what I'm telling you. Absolutely not. But what I will say is that I follow the practices of Ayurveda. Ayurveda is like one of the sciences of India, and it is essentially medicine that really strives to heal you as an entire person. And according to Ayurveda, whatever feeling state or whatever spiritual state you want to be in, you should eat according to that state. And if you want to be light, and think about what is light. Plants are light. The way that it's described is like, think of a plant of spinach and how it's just like there and the wind blows and it like blows it around. It's really light. So if you want to be light in spirit, then you want to eat light things. So think of lettuce and spinach and vegetables, no root vegetables, because anything that goes under the ground, and that becomes grounding. So in order to become lighter in your spirit and really reach a higher spiritual state, so to speak, then you want to eat things that are lighter and are going to put you in that state. That I can attest to it being true. For a while when I was doing more tarot readings, I found that it was easier for me to connect with just whatever it is that we connect with when we're reading tarot. I found that it was easier whenever I really want to get into a spiritual state and be able to pray lighter and feel like my prayers are just getting to the right place. I really prefer to do that on a vegetarian diet because it just feels better emotionally. If you've never tried it, just try it. Just try it out. This isn't like you absolutely have to do this. This is just one of the tips. So the second thing that you could do is dream work. So because the 12th house is associated with sleep, I probably didn't say that in the first part, but the 12th house is also associated with sleep. So dream work is another really useful way of connecting with that 12th house. So what I mean by that is, for example, if you wanted to connect with a certain aspect of yourself, like let's just say you really want to be brave and if you have Aries in the 12th house and you really want to an Aries sun in the 12th house and you really want to see yourself as that warrior, then maybe you want to study that or practice that in a dream state because it allows you to feel how it's kind of like virtual reality. That's what a dream could be like. It's virtual reality and you're able to try on these characteristics that you don't have in your everyday life. So your everyday life being your first house. So one way of doing this is by lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is just absolutely amazing. It's a wonderful tool. The reason why I got into it is the 12th house is also associated with fears. So I used to have a lot of phobias. Now I have a few. And the reason why I got into lucid dreaming was because I wanted to take a flight. I've never been on a plane. So why I got into lucid dreaming was because I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a flight in my dream, and then when I actually take a flight, it won't be so scary. So that's how I got into it. There are a bunch of methods of how you can lucid dream, but the most important tip that I could tell you is to tell yourself right before you go to sleep, tonight I'm gonna get lucid. I'm gonna have a lucid dream. That within like 5 days of trying to, no, it was probably 4. Within 4 days of trying to lucid dream, I was able to lucid dream. It was amazing. It was such a cool experience. I really recommend it to everybody, and there's not much else that I could say about it. Just try lucid dreaming. I'm not gonna go into the techniques of lucid dreaming too much because there are a lot of really wonderful YouTubers who talk about lucid dreaming like a lot. So I'll just put a cool one in the description so you could go to that one if you're interested. The third thing that you could do is meditation. So you could do guided meditations where you could really go into a state of being that is not just your regular conscious state. That is really the goal of meditation with the 12th house in mind, to really put yourself in a different state of mind that puts you at ease and takes you a little bit out of your body, detaches you from your body a little bit to the point where you can let go of your body in the first house. So the first house is whatever is limiting your 12th house, because the 12th house is all the things that you didn't get to bring into this life physically. Because the first house is physical and the 12th house is psychological. So if you let go of your physical body, first house, you'll fall more into the 12th house. And like that, you'll be able to explore those sides of yourself that you don't get to see whenever you're awake and physically present in your body. So that is another really important way of connecting with the 12th house. The fourth way that you can connect with the 12th house is hypnosis. Make sure that you find a qualified hypnotist. I used to go to a hypnotist when I was a little girl with my mom, and it was our family doctor, and he probably was able to hypnotize me one time. Like I said, I'm a big control freak. Some people are more prone to being hypnotized. If you can't find somebody near you who does hypnosis, I really like this guy. I'm gonna look for his information and put it in the description, because I didn't used to drive. I used to be phobic of driving. I'm telling you, 12th houser, I had a lot of fears. So I was really afraid of driving, and I didn't get my license until I was 25 years old because I was extremely phobic. And the only way that I was able to do it was because of this program. I think his name is Joseph Clough, I believe. And yeah, I bought his program for driving phobia, and he's a hypnotist, and I listened to it over and over and over again for like a week. And then I went to driving school, and then I was able to drive, and now I can drive myself anywhere, which is wonderful. And I wouldn't say that I got hypnotized, but the message was able to get into my subconscious just enough to really release me from that fear. So I'm telling you, it works. And lastly, I left this one to the end because I just want to mention it because it definitely is a way to connect to the 12th house, but I myself would not recommend it to people, to certain people. But yes, it is psychedelic drugs. Definitely a lot of more traditional cultures around the world really recognize that psychedelic drugs are a way to connect with spirit, with higher power, with just source energy. And to not put this in my list would just be really silly of me. I myself have Neptune on my ascendant, and if you know anything about astrology, you know that means that I cannot do any sort of drugs. And I've never done drugs because I'm a rising Capricorn also, but not because I think that they're bad. I used to think they were bad when I was a kid, but now I'm an adult and I'm just like, man, I really wish I had that avenue for myself, but I do not because I have Neptune on my ascendant and I can get high off of anything. So that is dangerous. I am drugs. I have Neptune on my ascendant, guys. I can get into other states of being just by meditation. So, but if you have a really stable rising sign, or if you have a lot of stable energy in your chart and you really would like to connect with a higher power, or if you would like to connect with that, then definitely psychedelic drugs are a way of doing that. So that's the video for today, guys. In the future, I'm gonna be making some, hopefully, if I can manage it, I'm gonna be making some guided meditations for the 12th house, for the 4th house, and for the 8th house. Because I think that connecting with those houses is not very straightforward, and I think that guided meditations are a really fun and interesting way of getting into them. So I hope to be doing that in the very near future. I hope you liked the video. If you did, make sure you give me a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe. I put out astrology videos every single week, and I will see you in the next one.